Hello, I'm Paul Behrman, and this is Talking About The Who, the podcast dedicated to that nice rock and roll band from Shepherd's Bush, London. Welcome to episode 6, the final episode of season 3. And in today's episode, we're going to be doing something a little bit different, as we're taking a deep dive into The Who's concert at the Valley, the home of Charlton Athletic Football Club in South East London on 31st of May 1976. The first of 3 UK concerts at football grounds, dubbed Who Put the Boot In, the other 2 being at Celtic in Glasgow, Scotland and Swansea in Wales. Charlton 76 can be seen as a legendary gig for so many reasons, and we'll be touching on those reasons throughout this episode with all 5 of my special guests: Keith Moon biographer Tony Fletcher, drummer of seminal mod band The Chords, Buddy Ascot, The Who's artist and designer Richard Evans, and my mum and dad. And as well as looking at the reasons why Charlton 76 is such a unique concert in The Who's history, this episode also looks at the 5 support bands that day, plus many other bands and artists too, all helping to paint a picture of not only the gig itself, but also general music fandom, as well as concert culture over the past 50 years. Right, let's get into it. First of all, I spoke remotely with Tony Fletcher in March this year, and started our conversation by asking him about his early days as a Who fan. And so, without any further ado, here's our deep dive into Charlton 1976.
So I would have just turned 12 when they played at Charlton. I was probably 11 when I got my ticket, pushing 12, and I had been a Who fan for at least a couple of years, and it really kicked in with the encouragement from my friend who was also at the show. I call him my big brother friend because he really served as that. This guy Jeffries, and I had been fascinated by Quadrophenia, which he owned because he was 3 years older than me, and I'd loved everything I'd heard by The Who, which was relatively limited. And my friend Jeffries had really encouraged me, like in a nice way. Maybe something like Quadrophenia was a bit jumping in the deep end, and I got Meaty Beaty Big and Bouncy, which is much more appropriate for a 10-year-old. And I mean, to this day, there's not a single song on there I don't love to death. I loved that it could appeal to a sort of prepubescent 10, 11, 12-year-old. All those songs, I didn't know the meaning of Pictures of Lily. And, and there's some that I'm not sure any of us still know the meaning to, but they absolutely connected with me. And in terms of concerts, this would have been almost certainly only my second concert, because I had gone to see Queen at Hammersmith Odeon the previous December, and that was my first concert, and this was a big step up in a number of ways because I actually pretty much went on my own, and it was this sort of solo experience, and that is the background to it. So I was just so looking forward to this. The Who were my band. I was in love with them. And I think part of the attraction of Charlton was that it was a football stadium, and that the Who had sort of upped the ante to playing. I don't know that we actually called anything but Wembley a stadium. I really don't. Words change over time. I think we were just saying football grounds. If I'm looking at the back of the programme here, or the front, it's saying Charlton Athletic Football Club. And I think we were, them playing football grounds just kind of tied in with them being the street band. And for better or worse, which we'll get to, in terms of the conditions there. But it felt like, in many ways, I wish I could have seen them with Keith Moon at, say, Earl's Court, or in fact, Wembley Arena, Empire Pool, it would have been back then. But they decided to do just these 3 really big concerts, and I'd missed my opportunity, I guess, the previous year when they were still touring the concert halls. And, I didn't quite get there, but I did get to Queen at the point that Bohemian Rhapsody was breaking big. So, I've never been embarrassed by that one as a first show. And I got to see The Who with Keith Moon, which, definitely was important to the rest of my life.
Were you there all day? Did you see any of the other bands on the bill?
Yeah, well, I tried to be there all day, Paul. I got there in time to be there all day, and it was fun. Right before coming on, I reread the just one short chapter in my memoir, my first memoir, Boy About Town, about the experience, and it wasn't something it was so clearly imprinted on my mind. I had no problems writing this up a couple of decades down the line. My mother took me up there. Very strange relationship and trusting and sort of not knowing. There's a lot of combinations going on. My mum loved The Who as well. She just enjoyed all the boyish songs on Meaty Beatty, and she didn't really, I've got to be honest, she had no idea what Pictures of Lily was about either. Child brought up in the 50s, I think. She definitely took me up there with this unbelievable trust that I would find my own way home. But considering I'd done it from football grounds, all over the place, I guess she could have trusted me. I mean, it really wasn't that much beyond when I'd been down the road at Millwall and got completely lost because I got broken up from a friend Jeffries because of Millwall aggro. And so quite why she thought I would be able to find my way home, but she trusted me. And so she dropped me there, and I was of that age that when it says on the tickets, concert noon, I'm there at noon. And we joined this, I joined this queue because that seemed the obvious thing to do. And the queue just didn't move, and it didn't move, and it didn't move. And it didn't move even when Widowmaker came on as the opening band. And I was sort of distraught at the idea of missing live music because I was going to get my money's worth. Mm. And eventually, and it may have been when they were playing, because I remember I saw some of Streetwalkers, the queue just like shifted direction. It sort of just turned around and everybody just sort of started moving in a different way, running or jogging to a different entrance. And I think that was like an indication of just how chaotic the day was, because that queue should have been at least moving if there are bands coming on stage, even if it's one of those, and I've been in them, where you're like, oh no, the match is starting without me, or the concert's starting without me. At least the queue is moving. And the other thing that just was just incredible about that moment, and also just told me what to expect when we got in, was while we were standing there, these two blokes came along, totally dressed of the era, like jeans, denims, long hair. They didn't look thuggish, but they looked pretty rough. And they just went and broke into this boarded house that was on the street where we were queuing. And they went in and smashed the entire thing up. You could hear it. They just went in and released all this tension. Maybe they were pissed off with being in the queue. Maybe they just wanted to act out their Keith Moon fantasy. And it was the right concert to do that. And it's like this surreal moment that, it's not filmed, but I know my memory, and that memory never, ever faded. They came out after however long it was, and the rest of us who were humbly stood there in the queue, sort of being very British, despite this being a rock concert, and just waiting. They came out and got a round of applause, and they sort of bowed and moved on. Like it was this unbelievably Keith Moon kind of like thing to do. And then they just like walked on, and I don't know, maybe they climbed a fence to get in. I have no idea.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. I know lots of fans were turned away at the gate because they had counterfeit tickets. And I think from what I've written down, there's reports of 80,000 fans being there despite a 50,000 capacity. Yeah, eventually the police had to stop letting people in for safety reasons, even people who had genuine tickets. But I was going to ask you if you were aware of that at the time that was going on, but I guess it was probably pretty obvious.
It was obvious. There was a lot of talk about it. My memory um, was that people were talking about it, even possibly in the queue. And I'm not entirely convinced I didn't have a counterfeit ticket, because when I got the ticket, and this is in Boy About Town, my dad came. My dad was living in Canada, and we didn't get on very well anyway. But he took me out from around my 12th birthday, and I had saved about half the money for this ticket, and I just begged him to pay for the rest of it. And I think he was probably, in fairness to him, because time allows you to get different perspectives. He was probably like, "Is he allowed to go? What does his mum think about this? Am I cool with this? Should I care? All these things." But I convinced him, and we went round Leicester Square, because he'd always just take me for a meal in central London and see if we could connect. And we went round all these ticket agencies. They're like, "No, mate, sold out, sold out, sold out, sold out." And we eventually got a ticket down a kind of alleyway. And I was left scratching my head over the years. Sure, I wasn't going to take no for an answer, and I found a ticket. But the fact that this was not one of your major Leicester Square ticket agencies, because this is where you bought tickets for big events. It had moved on from, send a stamped address envelope when the Beatles were playing Shea Stadium, which is what it used to be, to, you can go to a central location and get a ticket. And that's what people were doing. So I paid the money. It looked like a real ticket, but I do have a sort of memory that when I went through the turnstile eventually, I got asked a couple of questions, and it could possibly be one of those retrospective, implanted memories. But my memory was of the person at the turnstile looking really carefully, sighing, asking me where I got the ticket, me telling him the truth, because fortunately I wasn't good at lying, him sighing again and letting me in. So I'm not entirely sure that I had a genuine ticket, and it was evident once you got in. I knew what overcrowded football grounds were like. I'd been to tons of matches. I'd been in scary situations because of crowd sizes, met quite too many times, and I was later that evening as well, and it felt completely oversold, way beyond capacity. It felt like, a couple of times I've been at that. One of them would have come 3 years later when Selhurst Park Palace got its highest ever attendance. I'd been at a Chelsea Leeds game where my mum and I were kind of lifted off our feet by the size of the crowd, where probably about 3 years earlier. I'd definitely been at some football matches where when those disasters did happen, you're kind of aware that, they partly happened because there were too many people there and people can't escape. It was really crowded. So, when I got in, it may have been all very, very exciting. And then just like bit by bit, it gets more and more crowded. And I ended up doing what I pretty much used to do at the football matches as well, as there were more and more crowds sort of packing the back of a terrace. The smaller ones move forwards. It's a kind of, I think it's a subconscious safety mechanism. You're like, I'm in amongst the big boys, so if I move forwards, it's going to be a little bit safer, as long as those turnstiles, the crash barriers hold if there's a crush. And so that's what I did. I don't actually recall feeling scared inside as much as kind of like mesmerized. But there was lots of drunkenness. There were lots of people climbing the floodlights, and there was definitely issues with crowd behavior. And I believe Nicky Horn was in fact the DJ at the show, the Compare maybe. And I do recall him having to make a couple of announcements, and it felt really, really chaotic. And that's before we get to the weather. I think it started raining almost as soon as I got in. I feel like I was standing outside in that hour-long queue that went nowhere in the drive, but it just rained all day. And you know what? I've never quite been sure. Maybe there's other people who know whether I have a feeling it might have stopped somewhere around the Who set. This was a long day to be in the rain. at a football ground that was that the if my memory serves right I think it was uncovered on three sides, and only the main stand was covered, and that's of course where the stage was. And even then, I'm not sure that stage was safe for the bands with the amount of rain.
But that's sort of one reason I wanted to do an episode on Charlton, mainly because my mum and dad were there, and I thought it'd be interesting to sort of see how their memories measured up against each other. But getting a few other people like yourself and the other people I'm due to speak to, just be interesting to get all these different memories of the day and see how they stack up against each other.
That's delightful. I really like that. But we don't. I want to be careful. You know, my mum was actually really, really cool, but you know, she didn't grow up on rock music, and you're sufficiently younger than me that they grew up on and loving the Who, and grew up on rock music, and then they were able to pass that down. I was able to pass it down to my kid for the longest time, and then he kind of grew out of it. But he saw the Who several times, and was like just infatuated with them for probably about a good chunk of his life. So that's a beautiful thing, and you know, I love the idea of that. I can't wait to hear what your parents say about it.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I mean, I kind of know a lot of their memories, but it'd be good to get them recorded and put out there.
The other thing I should probably say about the show, and this is something that I've probably not really written about because it's more recent, but you'll be aware, and hopefully it's come up in a couple of other interviews. For a long time, that concert held the record as the loudest concert of all time. It was in the Guinness Book of Records for, I'm just going to get, it was 126 decibels. And that was by far and away the record. I think it had previously been held by Deep Purple at 117. And I went back to this recently. The record got broken a couple of times over the years, almost like consciously by a couple of really bands that were almost going out to do it. And the Guinness Book of Records ultimately did away. They literally discontinued the category to prevent promoting hearing damage. Now it was a little late for me. I've got tinnitus, and I knew that it had really come and hit me about 3 years ago, and I wanted an appointment with the doctor because I actually wanted to get an audiology test and see if there was anything I could get on insurance that might help, because it just sort of came on very suddenly, and ironically it came on just after I started using custom molded earplugs, so I was aware that I was going through like another period. I was actively involved in music again and working with kids, and amps would often just squeal and in a small room, and I knew I was damaging my ears. So I go to the doctor. I get this appointment. He's not my regular doctor, and he's like, well, do you know what this is from? And I say, I probably told him up front, listen, I've spent a lifetime in music, like I know what this is from. And he says, well, we would normally, possibly run tests to see if you've got there's an inner ear problem you can have. It could be something else. And I said, look, mate, I wouldn't have called him mate because it was over here in the States. But I said, look, my concert going started with the loudest show of all time. Kind of went on from there. And he goes, you saw Blue Cheer? And I'm like, no. I saw the Who. And he's like, no, it's Blue Cheer. Blue Cheer were the loudest band of all time. So I had this wonderful appointment with this doctor who's only a few years older than me. We both got out our phones to check on the loudest show of all time. And he was only half right. Blue Cheer had a reputation as an American band for being so loud people would flee the room. But I've never found a measurement of decibels for them. And he had seen them and somehow survived. But then he was like, oh, you're right. So the Who held the record for a long time. And he said, well, I said, yeah. I said, but the good news is I was a football pitch width away. Because he said, wow, it was 122 decibels. That would damage your ears. And I said, yeah, well, the good news is I was a football pitch away. And he says, it says here this was measured at 100 feet from the stage. And I'm like, yeah, so it was probably pretty much 122 decibels. And it's kind of been downhill since there. So we were able to have a good laugh about that. Unfortunately, there is no at the moment no immediate cure for tinnitus. It comes and goes, and my hearing has been damaged, but not just by the Who, by a lifetime of rock and roll. But it was loud, man. It was really, really, really loud. I imagine there were people in North London who couldn't sleep that night. I probably could have stayed home in Crystal Palace and have heard it. It was loud.
Tony Fletcher on Charlton, 76. We're now going to move on to the first of 3 sections within this episode, which feature my mum, Wendy, and my dad, John, who were at the concert after being together for about a year and 4 years before I was born. They've been separated for many years now, but as you heard me say to Tony Fletcher, I was keen to collect their memories of Charlton and see how they measured up against each other's. I spoke to them both in April this year, my mum on Zoom and my dad face to face at his home on the Isle of Dogs in East London. So here's my mum and dad, Wendy and John, on Charlton, 76.
Obviously, I was always aware of them because I used to listen to the charts, etc. So, from their early stuff. So sort of, knew who they were. But I probably really noticed them around the time of things like Let's See Action and Join Together, which when I've looked up are 1971 and 72, which fits with my memory. So I would be 14, 15-ish around that time. So really started to like them. But I think I didn't really know them in any depth until I met your dad, which would be 1975. So a year before Charlton. And started to really listen to them and really enjoy them from then.
Yeah, so he was the Who fan and then you kind of became a Who fan through him.
Yeah. Yeah, sort of heard more of their album stuff and live stuff like Woodstock. I mean, Woodstock in particular, we listened to the Woodstock album a lot. So, yeah.
Roughly, I was about 14, I suppose, and I bought Who Live at Leeds, and that completely blew me away. Probably so was drumming, because I've never heard really drumming like that before. It was all over the place. It was like a guy who was carrying the kit upstairs and he dropped it and it went and that's kind of like Keith Moon. The sound was unbelievable. It was loud, it was aggressive, it was just perfect for the time, my age time. It was really probably one of the best live albums there ever is. Yeah,
hard to argue with that. How old did you say you were?
About 14. 14, yeah, 15,
yeah.
And just getting into heavy music as such, because I was brought up listening to, I had an older brother, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Lonnie Donegan and some John Lee Hooker, what my brother had. So he was listening to that from the age of 6, whatever. So I had that music in me, And I remember my brother showing me the difference between the bass and treble on a right old record player, probably about a 1 watt. And he just showed me the difference in sound, and I sort of like got into sound and all that when I started getting older, Yeah, but one of my top 5 bands ever. Yeah.
And can you remember what the process would have been for buying a ticket? Because I think it was very different to how it is now. Can you remember how you would have got the ticket?
Can't remember buying the tickets for it, to be honest. We obviously must have done. Unless a mate got them and, someone else might have got them for me. I can remember buying tickets for Eric Clapton. I'm talking about probably 10 years later, and having to ring up, order the tickets, and then I think you sent a check off and then they sent you the tickets back, but you'd booked your tickets, so the tickets are there in your name. And that must have been right, because our tickets, this was the Royal Albert Hall, were literally 5 rows from the front. So I must have been one of the first people to ring up. So I think it was done first come, first served. So if you phoned up for your tickets first of all, you were nearer. So I don't know about something like Charlton, which is obviously more open and no one's in a seat. That's obviously a different process, but it's probably a similar thing that you phoned up or you went somewhere and queued up for tickets.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking about, because we went to see the Who at Shepherd's Bush Empire in 1999, and I don't recall that being difficult to get a ticket. I mean, we probably timed it just right, but I just seem to remember reading about it in a newspaper, and then I think you maybe just rang up and just booked the tickets, and it seemed
Yeah.
very straightforward.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it's maybe because more people get to hear more quickly that's made it more difficult,
Yeah.
perhaps. But yeah, definitely, you now know a week in advance the tickets are coming out at this time. Everyone's sitting there at home waiting to get online to be the first one in the queue at 9 o'clock when the thing opens. And then you go on and you're like number 50,000 or something in the queue, and you're like, oh God, and it's literally a minute past 9 or something by that point. So I think it's actually got a lot harder.
Yeah, I think if the Who played Shepherd's Bush Empire now, it'd probably sell out within 2 minutes max. I reckon.
Yeah. But I feel it's more unfair now that sometimes those with more money or the better internet system or whatever get their tickets before maybe the real hardcore fans. So yeah, I don't know if it's always as fair as it was.
Yeah, it's an interesting debate to have.
Yeah.
But I think the old way of doing it just makes sense, doesn't it? It just seems like the best way of doing it.
Yeah.
Can you remember how much the ticket would have been at all?
No, I can't. I think I've still got the ticket somewhere.
Oh, have you?
I think so, yeah. I'll have to have a look. So it probably says on it.
Yeah, I have got the answer.
Oh right, have you? Go on
Yeah.
then.
So it was £4, including VAT, which I googled to see what that would be equivalent to in 2026, and it'd be about 38 quid today, which is still cheap for a gig of that
For a whole day
size.
gig, yeah. With big name bands like the ones that were there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what would you pay for something like, a day at Wembley now, seeing someone like The Who, but with all those other bands as well, you'd be paying
at least 100 quid.
at least 100, yeah.
But even in my first Who gig, and I know you didn't go to it, in '96 at Hyde Park, even that was 8 quid, and that had Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan, and Alanis Morissette on the bill as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's one of those things. It's just some things. It's just gone off the scale, really, and I don't know why, but yeah,
Like everything else.
there are some things that have just really risen in price. Houses are the prime example. The cost of a house or the rent of a house is just like gone up astronomically. It's absolutely ridiculous, really.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect this Charlton chat to potentially go political, but maybe we could save that for another day.
Yeah.
So you went to the gig with my dad, and you'd been together about a year at this point, you said?
Yeah, almost a year. Yeah. We met in July 1975, and that was obviously May 1976, wasn't it?
Was this the first gig you went to together?
Yeah, from obviously local pubs and seeing bands in local pubs. It's probably the first formal gig. Yeah, I would think. Yeah.
Was it the Bridge
first
House?
Ticketed gig, if you like. Yeah, the Bridge House we used to go to a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at this time, did you live on the Isle of Dogs in East London, where we?
Yeah.
I know I grew up there, obviously, but were you living there at the time?
Yeah. So living with my parents on the island. Yeah, we were in Havana Street then.
And
yeah.
And do you know how you would have got to the gig?
Yeah, we walked. So we would have walked through Greenwich Foot Tunnel, Don't ask me the directions after that, but I think it's probably quite a way to Charlton. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
probably a fair walk, but that was what we did. We walked a lot. So when we went to see Dire Straits when I was pregnant with you in 1979, we walked there, and that was Lewisham, and that was a fair walk as well.
Hmm.
Just what we did. We walked. You walk. It would have been really hard on public transport at the time to get there. I
Oh,
mean, now
really?
you've got Docklands Light Railway, would probably get you there fairly easily and stuff. But yeah, well, on the Isle of Dogs, public transport wasn't great. There was literally one bus that you would see every half an hour if you were lucky. And then if it got caught at the Blue Bridge that went up and down when boats went through, then you could wait an hour for the bus. Yeah.
Yes. See, not everything was better in 1976.
No.
Although, was there less pollution? That's a flipping it on its head slightly.
Yeah, we could go down the environment route.
Yeah.
There's probably more smokers at the gig. So,
Yeah.
you can take it both ways. Yeah.
Yeah. That's very true. But for anyone who isn't aware, the Greenwich Foot Tunnel, the other side of it is on the Isle of Dogs, so it's very, very straightforward to get from the Isle of Dogs to Greenwich through the tunnel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And obviously, people who know the Quadrophenia album booklet will have seen a picture of the Greenwich Foot Tunnel as well.
And I think the guitarist of Streetwalker, it might have been, we was chatting the other day, I think it might have been Ariel Bender was the lead guitarist, Streetwalkers, but I'm not sure again. Yeah.
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 So I'm going to quickly look it up.
Yeah.
It's either Streetwalkers or Widowmaker.
One of them didn't turn up, Paul.
Oh, okay.
There was a band who didn't turn up, so I really don't know what band didn't turn up and what band played.
So Steve Ellis was in Widowmaker, who was also in Love Affair.
Right.
And yeah, Ariel Bender was in Widowmaker.
Oh, so... But I don't... There was a band who didn't turn up. I don't know what reason that was, but I'm sure there was a band who didn't play. Who's supposed to have played.
So I've got the list of bands. So there's
Yeah.
Widowmaker. This is in order of when they're on stage.
Yeah,
Widowmaker, Streetwalkers, The Outlaws,
Right.
Little Feat,
Yeah.
Sensational Alex Harvey Band, and The Who.
Right, okay, yeah. Don't remember too much about the other bands at all. We was just getting settled, and it was just mainly the Who and Alex Harvey, that was in my head to see.
Yeah.
And the rest was, I know they're great bands and that, but I didn't really take too much notice of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you know what I mean. Yeah.
Just going back to Ariel Bender, is it right? My godfather Paul was mates with him?
Yes, he was, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did know him in his, somewhere on his music career, yeah.
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 That's pretty cool.
Yeah. As he was great friends with the Grand Dogs, Tony McPhee.
Yeah, because they asked him to join at one point as
They
bass.
did, yeah. But I think he went as a like a sort of like a roadie, if you know what I mean, a personnel sort of person. He went on the gig. He didn't want to join. I don't know why he didn't want to join, but I know he did go with them to help out a short tour. I don't even know if it was abroad or this country, but yeah, that was in the 70s sometime.
Yeah.
But he introduced me years ago to Mickey Cook, who played with McPhee.
Yeah.
I met Mickey a couple of times. I see him play, and Ricky Adams, the second guitarist of the Grand Dogs. I've seen Ricky play. I met Ricky a couple of times. Dave Wellbeloved, the other guitarist, I met him a couple of times. McPhee, I didn't really meet McPhee, but I've seen him. Live in the pub.
Yeah.
Somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah, great band, Ground Dogs.
Yeah.
Did you see any of the other bands on the bill? As we said, it was an all-day event.
Yeah, so I can remember, I think it must be not long after we arrived. I don't know the timings of any of it. They're probably all available, and I probably should have looked it all up.
Yeah,
But I believe that when we arrived, or not long after we arrived, or maybe one of the first bands that came on was Little Feat.
Okay, so I have got the order of the bands, not the times they came on, but
What's the order?
so the first three bands were Widowmaker, Streetwalkers, and The Outlaws, and Little Feat were the next band, so they were the fourth band on the bill.
Oh, well, I might. Yeah, the others. The names. They might have been on in the background. Maybe Little Feat were the first ones that actually caught the name of, perhaps,
Hmm.
because there were bands on all the time, but I wasn't necessarily taking any notice of them,
Yeah.
which sounds really bad.
My mum and dad on Charlton 76, and we'll be hearing more from them shortly. But before that, we're going to hear from Buddy Ascot, the drummer of seminal mod band The Chords, alongside many others, and a previous guest on Talking About The Who. Here he is now on Charlton 76.
So I had just turned 17, but I was a very young 17, and was just sort of finding my way in the world of music. And this was only my 7th gig ever. I'd seen The Who before at Wembley Empire Pool, which we established is the correct name for what is now Wembley Arena, which was my 2nd ever gig, believe it or not. And I had been to more football matches at this point in my life, probably about 20. And strangely, although I was a Tottenham fan since 1967, I'd been to the Valley far more times than White Hart Lane at this point.
Okay.
Because I used to get taken, me and my brother were taken by a family friend who used to teach us at the church. He was a huge Charlton fan, Keith, and he took us to see Charlton. In fact, the first game I ever went to was Arsenal-Charlton at Highbury in the FA Cup. So I was very used to going to Charlton, and what I do remember is coming out of the station and following the usual path to the Valley, and it felt like a football match because it smelt like a football match. I can still remember the police horse shit stinking the place up, and the burger vans. So it had a feeling of a football match, which I think, judging by the advertising and the posters that The Who put out, was kind of the effect they wanted. I mean, they called that mini tour Who Put the Boot In, didn't they?
Yeah.
Possibly inadvisedly.
Yeah, in hindsight, yeah.
When we come on to the sensational Alex Harvey band. But I will tell you a funny story that I'd spoken to Roger Daltrey on Capital Radio.
Oh, okay.
About leading up to this. I think Roger was doing a series of radio interviews with local DJs, and he was on Capital Radio being interviewed by little Nicky Horn, if you remember him. And they invited people to phone in. I would have been 16, and I got through. And my brother taped it. I've got the cassette somewhere. And my voice sounds like this. I'm so nervous. And I said, "Hello, Roger." I asked him why they didn't do much off Quadrophenia. And I managed to quickly get in because it's your best album. And he said, yeah, it's a good album. It's a great album. Yeah. But then he went on to explain about the backing tapes being a problem. And suddenly I was off the air, that I'd spoken to one of The Who, which was incredible. The first one I ever spoke to. So it was a May day. It was grey. It was overcast from the beginning. And I seem to remember it raining all day. And not just drizzle, I mean really heavy, debilitating, miserable rain. So we got in. We went through a turnstile. It wasn't much to get in. I can't remember, but we excitedly bought the tickets. I went with school friends. So, of course, we got in, and then it's a completely open arena. So you just decide where you're going to take up your position. And at this point, we didn't know much about going to gigs. We were just finding our way. And we found our way to the terrace opposite the stage. The stage was at the side, not the end. And it was a massive terrace. I think it holds the greatest number of people at any UK football ground, that stand. It's the whole length, and it was one open terrace with no breaks, as I remember it. And I think that used to hold something like 30,000 people. And we worked our way up, probably about a third of the way up from the pitch level and slightly off centre, because obviously everyone was trying to get to the middle. And then we pitched camp there, because I think there were 5 or 6 of us. And how are you going to find your way back to find each other?
Mm.
That was our HQ for the day. We'd managed to sneak in some booze, which was a very daring thing to do. And what we used to do back in those days was get a quarter bottle of vodka and share that out, and then fill up the other half with something to dilute it a little bit. Maybe orange juice, maybe lime, in case you thought you were going to get scurvy while you were on the terraces. Anything to keep the vitamin C levels up. So we'd all sneaked in these little bottles, these little quarter bottles of spirits to top up the beer, which was probably warm Watley's or very weak Carlsberg or something, served in plastic cups. But it was so cold and so wet that it wasn't really conducive to getting drunk and having a great time. It was a marathon. It was a long day. I think people were trying to get drunk, but including me, I think it was difficult because the queues for the drinks and then queues for the urinals, which would have been fairly barbaric back then. And then the support acts started to come on. And I sort of knew something about streetwalkers. I mean, the group, not the profession. I must add. So they had, is it Graham Chapman used to sing for them? Or was that the bloke from Monty Python?
I think that's the bloke from Monty Python.
Okay, so someone Chapman was their singer who had been in...
I've got Family in mind. Is it Roger Chapman?
Yeah, Family. Roger Chapman. Yeah, that's
okay.
Right. They'd had a song called Burlesque, which was a great song. They didn't make much of an impression on me, but he did have a great voice, which carried. And they went down mildly, as you would expect. And then I think a very, very ill-judged second act was the Outlaws, and whoever decided to put them on, presumably Harvey Goldsmith, must want their head examined on a cold, wet, rainy day in May. A country and western / alternate American group wearing cowboy hats. I think it just went down like a bucket of cold sick. It was just. No, I don't think they set the place on fire. So the day went on. The anticipation was building all the time. Everyone was there for the Who, except I'll come to them in a minute. So next up were Little Feat. Which I knew nothing about. And to this day, I know nothing about. I know they're revered by millions, but everything I've heard just leaves me cold, I'm afraid. So they washed over me, and the day wore on, and the beer wore on, and the vodka and lime wore on, and scurvy receded. My gums were safe. And then it started to change. So the last support group was the sensational Alex Harvey band. And we'd seen some of their fans around the ground. I think they had tartan scarves tied around their wrists, but they weren't Bay City Rollers fans. They were as hard as nails, as obviously most of the band were. And when they came on, I think it was dusk was beginning. There was a lot of fighting going on down the front, especially. But I remember pockets. I think their fans who'd come down from Scotland were treating it a bit like a football match. So Who Put the Boot In wasn't the best title for this concert. And I think the concert stopped a couple of times because he was a fantastic performer, Alex Harvey, and they were the first group that actually made some kind of impression on me.
Yeah.
I thought there was something about them, but I was kind of pleased when they finished because it's a bit like when the Chords played at Loch Lomond in 1980, June 21st. And we were on with The Jam, Stiff Little Fingers, Bad Manners, us, the Tourists. So you've got nearly all the tribes there in a field in Scotland. And every time a band on the stage changed, the people down the front changed. And it was like the division of India and Pakistan in 1948, was it? All over again with pitched battles as the mods replaced the skinheads, and then the skinheads replaced the punks, and then the punks replaced the hippies. It was just carnage. And I think it was pretty much the same down the front while Sensational Alex Harvey band were on. And then I think it starts getting darker, much darker. And I think the rain finally relented. That's in my memory. I don't know if it's true. My program, my beloved program, which was quite a big A4 booklet, was absolutely soaked. And I was probably wearing some kind of Millets parka and Dr. Martens shoes, probably looked like a reject from the Undertones. I'd probably stuffed the program inside the jacket, but it was all bent up. It was soaking wet. And it was, I mean, I got it home in the end. It was a much treasured possession. But my friend Sean Baird very happily sent me a pristine copy last year. So I've got a dishevelled version and a pristine version. It was a great program. I mean, it was really good. Even the adverts were funny.
And a friend of yours, Goffer, who I've had the pleasure of meeting in person, he had an interesting role in the concert that day. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, Goffer Gladding, who started the fanzine Maximum Speed during the Mod Revival 79. He was there working for Bill Kirbishley's brother. And he was given a big rucksack full of badges to sell.
Is that Alan Kirbishley, or was there another brother?
There were two brothers. No, Alan, who was on West Ham's books at the time, a young player, and also Paul Kirbishley. So right. they were all outside selling badges. And years later, when Alan Kirbishley was playing for West Ham, when he went over to take a throw in, they'd shout at him, "Who badges, get your who badges." And he'd always turn around and laugh because he remembered obviously where that had come from. The Goffer went to all three gigs, Swansea, Glasgow and London, and said he made a fortune selling these badges. I'm sure all the tax was declared at the time.
Yeah. Just in case they're listening.
They're always listening.
So he was allowed to actually pocket what he made from the badges, or? Oh,
I don't know. I should think he had to. I should think it was a bit like selling the big issue.
Yeah.
But he did get to see the gigs from backstage.
Oh wow!
Which must have been really thrilling. Lucky sod.
So out of all the gigs you've ever been to, not just the Who, but any gigs, where would you place Charlton 76?
If you're in the top 10, it would be behind Wembley the year before, because that was the first time, which was really special. And also behind Shepherd's Bush Empire in 99, which was the best time I ever saw them. But it was a really memorable day. And it was sort of a baptism of fire for big gigs. I mean, you say there was about 80,000 there. It felt like 80,000. And I think you've realised the power of a group to pull that many people to a bit of a Carsey South London football crowd. Just make no bones about it. It's a lot better now.
Buddy Ascot on Charlton, 76. Let's now hear some more from my mum and dad, Wendy and John. I mean, had you just gone to see The Who? Was there anyone else you were looking forward to seeing?
Obviously, a sensational Alex Harvey band. And they were sensational. they were really good. Really enjoyed them as well. I believe they were the band before The Who, weren't they?
Yeah, they were after Little Feat, and then The Who were the last band.
Yeah. So maybe Little Feat were the first ones that I actively watched then. That's why they're in my memory a bit more. And then Alex Harvey. And then there was a big gap. And then The Who.
Yeah, we'll come on to the big gap and then The Who coming onto the stage shortly. Would there have been any food and drink on sale at the gigs at that time? Those big outdoor gigs. I'm guessing it's not like it is now.
No, there was definitely drink. I can remember people going off and getting, I think, cans of beer and stuff. I didn't personally go and get drinks. I had drinks bought for me, which was very nice. So I couldn't tell you what where it was or anything like that. But I think that we actually took food with us. I think it was one of those you take a packed lunch with you. Do you know what I mean? Take your picnic with you.
No, sensible. Yeah.
Well, you wouldn't be able to take it in now. You can't even take a bottle of water in now, can you?
Well, yeah. That's a whole another debate we could have.
Yeah.
Yeah, Alex Harvey was good as well. Yeah, and Alex Harvey said to the crowd, "You got to stop fighting" and all that at one point. Because that was uneasy. It was a long day and everyone was probably drunk. We didn't have a drink on us. We didn't think of taking beer with us, But yeah, I'm never going to forget it. It was a great day.
So could you buy beers? Were there any bars set up? I don't know.
As far as I know, no, there weren't. You couldn't get nothing to eat there. It wasn't like now. You've got so many choices. There was nothing there at all. No food. So we didn't have nothing to eat all day. Didn't think of bringing anything with us. But it didn't really matter once you come on. And that was it. Everyone went mad.
Yeah,
brilliant. Yeah.
Do you know how far away from the stage you were at Charlton?
I reckon I would say halfway, roughly. Yeah, if I remember.
So that's not a bad spot, I guess.
No.
It felt like it was round. In my memory, it was round. So I don't know if the seats were not seats, but it was concrete stepping sort of thing. And we were not on the lowest bit, so we were a few concrete steps up, I would say. But obviously still people in front of us and you couldn't necessarily see over. I'm probably remembering this completely wrong. This is in my head. This is my memory. It's probably totally wrong. But I'd say we were about halfway, so we weren't really, really close to the stage, but equally we weren't miles away. We could see people quite fairly clearly, yeah. So halfway back from the narrow part of a football ground isn't really, you can see it's not that far away. Yeah, so maybe that's why I've got that round thing, because I sort of think of people that side and the stage there. Maybe that's why in my head it feels round, because it's long and narrow.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that makes sense. So were you positioned in the same place for the whole day?
Pretty much, yeah. I think once you got your place, I think that's why people went off and got drinks. So people maybe took it in turns to go and buy a round or whatever. And the other people would keep the place.
You can imagine it was like sardines in there. It was terrible.
Yeah.
And it was raining and crowded and wet. But once you come on, I can't forget all about it.
Yeah.
It was great.
But I've realised something I haven't written on my list of questions is the fact that it was raining all day, which is probably the first thing I should have written down.
I don't think it was raining all day.
Oh, okay.
I think it was fairly sunny, maybe. but dry, probably up until in my memory, I would have said maybe partway through Alex Harvey, perhaps,
Oh, okay.
because I feel like we only really started getting wet in the big gap that I keep mentioning between Alex Harvey band and the Who. So I don't think it was raining all day. I think it was just as as the evening came, sort of thing. As it got dark, the evening came. Yeah.
It was from 12 o'clock to about 10 o'clock, as far as I remember. And it was really hot and sunny at first, then it just rained and it didn't stop. Everyone was soaking wet.
Another thing that's been documented about Charlton was that there was quite a lot of violence in the crowd. Is that something you'd have been aware of?
No, I didn't personally witness any violence. I know there was people who climbed up on the. I don't know if it was the speaker systems or whether it's to do with the laser lights, but anyway, towers that were around and people were climbing up them, and they were trying to get the people to come down. And so you had there were DJs as well. They were playing music in between the bands. And I can remember the DJ saying, what music should we play? And someone shouting out, Stairway to Heaven, because there's someone halfway up this tower. So I can remember that. And they might have. No, I'm probably just mixing it up with other gigs, but I don't recall seeing any violence at all.
And it was a delay of about 40 minutes. It could have been longer. So someone climbed up one of the lighting towers. And it was funny at first. Then the guy come out and said, if you don't come down, you ain't going on. Then it became very aggressive. We'll effing kill you if you don't come down, And then he eventually come down. The DJ played Stairway to Heaven. Whoever the DJ, it might be Nicky Horn, I think, I'm not really sure. He played Stairway to Heaven, and I thought that was funny, but the guy did come down. And before you come on, I read up about it later, there were 65 security guys. They completely went round the bottom of the stage, to protect you. There was a lot of fighting now. There was a lot of beer cans being thrown about,
So let's talk about the Who set. And first of all, you mentioned a huge gap between Alex Harvey and then the Who coming on. So I'm curious to get your memory of the Who actually coming onto the stage, because I know how you remember it, and you can obviously tell us now, but I've read differing accounts, and other people have their own memories. But
so for me, my memory is that it was raining, but it was that drizzly sort of rain. So you weren't aware of getting really soaked, but it's that drizzly rain where you are getting really wet. And I remember being a bit cold in my little jean jacket, but they kept wiping down the stage. So after Alex Harvey went off, there's men, one man or men, I don't know, I don't remember, but I just remember they kept coming out and wiping down the stage with mops, brushes, whatever, and wiping the stage and wiping it again and then wiping it again. And they kept doing it. And I was like, why are they spending so long doing that stage? And obviously, maybe it was getting a little bit wet. I think it was covered. It did have a cover over, but it was maybe getting a bit wet. But anyway, they kept doing it. And then when the Who came out, my memory is that Pete Townsend came running on and then went across the stage on his knees, playing his guitar. And so for me then, that's why they spent so long polishing the stage, because he was going to do that. That's his entrance. So that is my memory of the start of the Who gig, of everyone coming on stage. My memory is Pete coming on stage and going across the stage on his knees.
I can totally picture that happening.
Well, it explains why he's now had a knee replacement.
Oh, yeah. If he knew then what he knows now.
Very well to do these things in your youth, but it's not so good when you get older.
Yeah, that's it. But what's interesting is that I've what I've read online from various sources, and I'm not saying that they're right, but I have read a few accounts of people saying when the Who came on stage, Roger Daltrey slipped over. And I've listened to the bootleg of the gig, and the first thing that's said from the stage is Roger says it's the Who on ice. But it's interesting that people have said Roger, they walk on and Roger slips over, but you remember it as Pete running on and doing a big knee slide.
To me, it made sense because of the polish in the stage, but it could be, bearing in mind how the memory plays tricks, it could be exactly as you say, and actually maybe Pete did the knees thing at some other point during it.
Yeah.
But for me, that was how he came on. That was his entrance. Yeah,
I think it's totally feasible, and I wouldn't like to say someone's right and someone's wrong or anything like that. It's how memory works, isn't it? And
yeah. And if I was looking at him, I wouldn't have noticed Roger falling over anyway. So maybe both things happened.
Well, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Then all these people had cloths, and because it was rain, all the stage was wet, and they was trying to dry the stage off. But I think it was either Townsend fell over. I think Daltrey might have fell over at one point as well. You know?
I was going to ask about that because my mum remembers Pete Townsend coming on and doing this massive knee slide.
Yeah.
But I've read online people saying it was Daltrey who slipped over. And I'm starting to think it probably was both of them who ended up.
Probably was. I do remember Townsend falling over, sort of. Where he kicked his leg up, he just went flying. But, that's part of you, isn't it? You know what I mean? Yeah, it sounded great. It was very loud, even in open air.
Yeah, could you get an idea how loud it was? That might be a silly question because it's obviously an outdoor gig, but...
No, not really. I didn't even know they was going for a record or anything. I had no knowledge of that at the time. Yeah. I know the Who played American once, and people thought it was a good idea to walk inside the speakers and come out with their ears bleeding. And,
walk inside the speakers?
Yeah, that's how sort of like big the PA was, Yeah, walk inside. Yeah.
Was it like a dare or something?
I don't know, but something you really want to do, isn't it? We went to your mum. We went to the Marquee, the old Marquee. You see, Eddie and the Yacht Rods were a great band, and we was next to the PA, and I had really bad ringing in my ears for about 3 days. I couldn't hear properly. Didn't think of moving. We just stood there, and that was a silly thing to do. Yeah.
You go to a gig indoors, and you really know how loud it is. I nearly fainted at a gig at the Marquee one time because I was right next to the speaker, and it was really, really loud. And then when the speaker went off, I suddenly felt all wheezy and faint, and someone had to sort of hold me up, and I had to get out as quick as I could to get some air. Whereas, nothing, I don't remember any discomfort hearing wise. That's probably why I've got tinnitus now, but no discomfort hearing wise at Charlton. But equally, that could have contributed to my tinnitus.
My mum and dad there, and we'll come back to them one more time before the end of this episode. Someone who had a unique perspective on Charlton was Richard Evans, who has now been working for The Who for 50 years. So let's hear his memories of Charlton 76. Everyone else I've spoken to was a paying punter at the gig, but I think you had quite a unique view of this gig. I think I'm right in saying.
I did. I mean, of course, I'd seen The Who before, and, I booked them when I was at art school in 1965, I think it was. But this was the first time I was working for the band, so, I had my backstage pass, and I was very lucky that I was sitting in the stadium in the covered bit behind the band, directly behind Keith. So I can't remember how far up I was, probably about halfway up or something. But I had a great view of the back of the whole stadium and the audience and everybody, of course. So, and I was dry all the time. So we were the fortunate ones.
That's definitely a unique perspective compared to everyone else I've spoken to.
Yeah. You know, because I think I might have told you in other interviews that when I started working with the Who, and I met Chris Chappell, who worked at Trinifold, and many years ago, of course, and Chris was, well, what did he do? He was Roger's PA at the time, so I dealt with Chris Chappell when I was doing the Bellboy Tour program mainly. I mean, I met Bill, you know, when I first went to the Trinifold office, which that back then was in Kingsley Street behind Liberties and Soho, and a very tiny little pokey office it was, and you know, Trinifold then was probably 5 people or something. You know, Bill and Jackie, his then wife, and Chris, and a couple of other people. Yeah, it was a very low-key affair for one of the biggest bands, you know.
Yeah, that's quite a juxtaposition, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah. And I thought it was great, you know. Here I was working for the Who. I mean, they weren't my be all end all favorite band, but they were one of many bands that I loved, you know. But I just thought it was great, you know, working for the Who. It's fantastic. So yeah, it was my first for the Who. Certainly, it was my first backstage pass event. Put it that way, you know. It was probably just like 8 or 10 rows up, you know, in the stadium, and the what do you call the covered bit?
Oh, like the terrace.
I'm not a footy fan.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the terrace I was, yeah. But it was comfortable, and you know, if you wanted to pee, you didn't have to go with the rest of them down there, and there were refreshments backstage and bits and pieces, and you know, people you recognized and so forth. You know, it was a great afternoon. I loved it. Yeah.
Did you have any kind of interaction with the band backstage, either before or after the gig?
No, I don't think I did. I mean, you know, I saw them, but I didn't really, you know, I didn't know them. I'd not met any of them individually, apart from Keith when we did the photo session. But he was sort of all over the place and what have you. I remember him before the show started. That incident with that Australian comedian where he poured a bottle of vodka over him. And I saw that going on in the distance, and I thought, "Oh, this looks like it's going to be a good day," you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And you just mentioned just before we started recording that it's at the time of recording, 2026, it's obviously 50 years since the gig, and it'll be your
Yeah.
50th anniversary of working for
50th anniversary of working for the Orbaloo.
Yeah.
I did have lunch with Bill Kerbishley a month or two ago, and I said, "Do I get a carriage clock, Bill?" He says, "We'll get you a watch." I'm still waiting, you know. I'm thinking, well, maybe I'll get a nice Cartier tank watch, you know. That'd be nice, you know. But I'm not waiting, so I probably ought to buy my own watch, you know.
And you've never been under contract either. That's right, isn't it?
No, not at all, not at all. You know, just the luck of the draw, really, you know. So, but I do remember it lashing down during the afternoon when I'm trying to think who the band on before the Who, probably Alex Harvey or something. I should
I think
think.
it was, yeah.
Yeah, and it started to clear up after that. But when the other bands were on, Little Feet and Streetwalkers, ex-Family, you know, yeah, it was pretty wet, but not for me. And what I do remember as well was that because there was a big buzz in the office, Trinifold office, that John Wolfe, Wiggy Wolfe, who was doing all the lasers for the Who back in those days, was going to do his biggest and best laser show ever, and was going to point this laser just going straight up into the sky, which theoretically would go on forever, you know. But I think the London County Council said, you can't do that, there's aeroplanes coming in. But he did do a fantastic light show. I think there were an awful lot of hitches with it, but I mean, we did get lasers because 75, 76, there were always lasers, you know. great things. I mean, it was a Who show with lasers, you know. And
Yeah,
the Who lent those lasers out to loads of people. I remember seeing McCartney Wings later on, and they had all the Who's lasers when they did Live and Let Die, which was their big, their James Bond song, and all the lasers would be going and stuff. It was the Who's lasers.
oh, I never knew they were the Who's lasers, but
And also, I can't remember which Christmas it was. It was like Christmas 75 or 76. The Christmas lights on Oxford Street, Wiggy set it all up. So he had a laser at Marble Arch going straight down Oxford Street to where the Dominion is, just this one beam of light, you know. Most of the Christmas shoppers thought it was a bit of a swizz. I mean, there were other lasers going on in bits and pieces, but there weren't any angels and bells and all the usual kind of trimmings and stuff. But there was this beam of light going straight down Oxford Street. So yeah, I mean, you know, the lasers that Wiggy did, they were used in many different things. You know, he was working out of Shepperton at the time, and at the same time they were filming Alien. And the Who's lasers were featured in Alien as well. You know. It's funny actually. When I was talking to Pete about 3 or 4 weeks ago, I can't remember, and I brought up this. I can't remember what we were talking about. It was about concerts and things, and I said, well, you know, the Who Put the Boot in shows. He looked at me a bit like, what? What's the Who Put the Boot in? Because he'd totally forgotten that those 3 shows were called Who Put the Boot In. You know, he just remembers them as Charlton, playing Celtic, playing Swansea. But Who Put the Boot? Oh, right, yeah.
I mean, that's the thing. I've always thought Pete and Roger aren't going to be across all the details because that's for the fans, isn't it? Like they're not. It's their lives. They're not going to remember every single detail.
No, or every single gig. I mean, you know, you can't say to Roger, what was it like when you played? Because he can't remember. Why would he? You know, I can't remember stuff that far back. Says he, talking about Charlton.
Yeah, it's probably either was that the one that rained or the other one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you? I think you've already said that you saw at least most of the other bands on the bill. Anything that really sticks out from the other band sets on the day?
Well, I was really into streetwalkers because after I did my degree course at Nottingham in the 1960s, I then did a postgrad course at Leicester College of Art to get an MA there, and that was when this was 1968, and the talk of the town was that some of the guys from Family had been at Leicester College of Art, you know, and I didn't meet those guys then, but then when I moved down to London shortly after that, I met the guys in Family, and they were living not far from me off the King's Road in Chelsea, and I became good pals with Rob Townsend, who was a drummer from Family. And he's now he's in the blues band that Paul Jones has, the Manfreds and so forth. And he and I were pals for a long time, and John Whitney as well. Charlie Whitney, the guitar player. And I remember going to see Tim Buckley at the Royal Festival Hall with Charlie Whitney and the girl I was going out with, and we were all there totally enamored with Tim Buckley, who was this ghost-like creature, a beautiful guy who was singing in the most amazing voice, you know, singing sort of 4 or 5 octaves with his soprano voice and God knows what. So I knew those guys, and I'd met what's his name, Chapman. What's his name? The singer, Rob Chapman.
Roger Chapman, is it?
Roger Chapman. Yeah. And remember him with his very shaky tremolo voice. Whoa! He used to sing. So I was big fans of Family, and I loved their first album. That who was it from Traffic? Dave Mason, sadly, who died. One of them produced their Family's first album, Music from Doll's House, and I love it. I still love that album. So, in answer to your question, yeah, I was keen to see Streetwalkers, which was Roger Chapman and and Charlie Whitney. They were good. Alex Harvey was good. I didn't really know Alex Harvey's music that well. And who else was on the bill? Remind me.
Little Feat.
Oh yeah, Little Feat, fabulous. Yeah. Oh, and Widowmaker. That Widowmaker was, oh, who was it? Ariel Bender, from Spooky Tooth, Mott the Hoople. Steve Ellis was the singer in Widowmaker. Steve Ellis, if you remember him, who was a good friend and still is a good friend of Rogers. Oh, and the Outlaws as well. Outlaws were a great country band as well. And I think Trinifold were partially managing them at that time as well. Because yeah, and say Alex Harvey. I don't really know Alex Harvey, but he put on a great show, a sensational show. He was, the last of the teenage heartthrobs, as Mojo referred to him last month. Yeah, he was a great act. Very sad he went too, but yeah, they were a good band.
Yeah, just going back to Steve Ellis, he was in Love Affair, wasn't he? The singer.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yes. I
They
think,
were one of the first bands that was accused. Do you know, Love Affair was only the singer sang on the record. Everybody else was session people. Oh, surprise, surprise. Has that never happened before?
yeah, the band, I've known a few of their songs for so many years, but it's only recently I've kind of taken any notice and realised how good they actually are.
Yeah.
But I saw some footage recently. They look like they've got quite a modern look about them, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, they were great. And Steve Ellis was, one of those, a bit like Steve Marriott. He was one of those white guys who could sing like a black guy, a great soul singer, and still got a great voice. And as I say, he's to this day is a good pal of Rogers. And I think he still makes the odd record, but he's not really so much in the music business these days, I don't think. Which was very, very sad because he was a good singer. And Love Affair were a great band.
Yeah, and I think he was 17 when Rainbow Valley and Everlasting Love came out.
Yeah,
so it's incredible he's got that kind of voice at that age.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, again, it was like Steve Marriott. Steve Marriott was a child star, appearing in Oliver and stuff like that, and then came out of that incredibly dirty bluesy voice he had. It was great. I was a big fan of both of them.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll ask you this final question. Out of all the gigs you've ever been to, and not just the Who, but any gig, where would you place Charlton 76?
Oh, certainly in my top 5, I would think. Yeah. Yeah, of gigs of anybody, Yeah, yeah, yeah. The Who at Charlton, the concert for George Harrison at the Royal Albert Hall in 2002. Fourth row in the Royal Festival Hall to see Brian Wilson do Smile. And I can't think who else. Probably Led Zeppelin or something. Yeah. Oh, and Hendrix and the Beachcomber Club, Nottingham, 1966. But I didn't realise at the time.
Yeah, that would be the sort of gig I'd want to go back to if time travel was possible.
Yeah, and the support was Jimmy Cliff.
Yeah, that's quite a lineup.
Yeah. So those would do me on my desert island if they were all there to play for me. Yeah.
Richard Evans on Charlton 76. And now for the final time this episode, here's my mum and dad, Wendy and John. So apart from the volume, what are your abiding memories of the Who set?
Mate, I had I had my little Mooney, I was just starting getting into drumming. I like drumming, and I was just shocked at the size of his drum kit. It's massive, but all of it, it's all like, it's really hard to remember. It was such a long while ago, but it was just, it made an impression on me, as a young kid.
Yeah.
So young, I think I was about 17 at the time when I saw him. Right, yeah, brilliant band.
I wouldn't have really known, or I would have known songs by then, but I don't think any songs have stuck in my head that they did at that gig. So I couldn't tell you a single song. I can tell you that it was great and I loved the whole set and it was brilliant. But I also have a memory of Keith Moon getting up on the drum stool and I thought singing Bellboy. But you have since told me that they didn't do Bellboy at Charlton. So it must have been some other reason why he got up on the drum stool. But I'm sure he did get up on the drum stool for some reason or another. And I don't know what that is now. If it wasn't Bellboy, I don't know why.
Well, I think you're probably remembering that correctly because, and this is just for me listening to the bootleg, but he does introduce, I think it's Behind Blue Eyes he introduces.
Right.
And he also introduces the Tommy section. And then during the Tommy section, he sings Fiddle About and he sings Tommy's Holiday Camp. So
Okay.
I'm guessing during these introductions, maybe he would have stood on the drum stool.
Maybe, yeah. So maybe the reason I got it as Bellboy is that Cockney voice that he does. So if he was introducing Tommy, he might have done his like Cockney voice introducing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a good Cockney chappy up on the bar stool telling jokes, up on the drum stool telling jokes type of thing.
Yeah, I think he was good at sort of going from that to the upper class accent and kind of
Yeah.
mixing them together a little bit.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
But also there's footage from Charlton 1974 of The Who doing Bellboy. So it could be that you're thinking of maybe.
Maybe I've seen that. Yeah, maybe.
But also the official programme for the concert was called Bellboy because it was a play on Playboy. So maybe that's
Yeah.
sort of has sort of made that connection in your mind as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I could tell you the set list. I've got it in front of me if you're interested.
Yeah, go on.
Okay, and see if anything sort of rings a bell. So it started with I Can't Explain,
Hmm.
Substitute, My Wife, Barbara O'Reilly, Squeezebox, Behind Blue Eyes, Dreaming from the Waist, Magic Bus, and then the Tommy section, Amazing Journey, Sparks, Acid Queen, Fiddle About, Pinball Wizard, I'm Free, Tommy's Holiday Camp, and We're Not Gonna Take It / See Me Feel Me. And then ended with Summertime Blues, My Generation, and Won't Get Fooled Again.
I think Barbara O'Reilly sticks because I think I can remember Pete's dancing to Barbara O'Reilly. Yeah. So that yeah, definitely got that in my head. I mean, I think the thing now that what song would it have been when they did the laser lights? Because that was the first time any concert had done laser lights, and it was phenomenal, absolutely amazing. You know, you'd never seen anything like this ever. And then all of a sudden, there's these fantastic colours of light beaming across the whole place, you know, from corner to corner, side to side, whatever. I think in time to the music. But I remember it just being absolutely phenomenal because, you know, now laser lights are sort of 10 a penny, aren't they? But at the time, that was the first time they were seen and they were just amazing.
Yeah.
And it was Who that introduced them to us all.
That's it. Something else they invented amongst
Yeah, well up to the Who.
Yeah. So after the Who finished and everyone's leaving, do you remember the journey home? I guess I'm presuming it was a walk back to the Isle of Dogs.
Yeah, walking back to the Isle of Dogs, but yeah, I think just all walking back, chatting, happy. You know, good day had by all. A few beers down us all. We were all happy and no problems. Walking wasn't a problem in those days. Good times.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm not the slightest bit jealous that you got to see the Who with Keith Moon.
I'm so glad I did. Yeah, so glad I did.
Yeah, it turned out to be his last gig in England to a paying audience.
Yeah.
Then he died just over 2 years later. Can you remember hearing when he first died?
Yeah, I turned the radio on. I believe it was Capital. There weren't many stations then, and they kept playing Who records. And I thought, what do I want to keep playing Who records for? You know. Then it announced that, this is Keith Moon, who died this morning. Oh no, it's like a shock. I always wanted to meet him. I thought one day I'm definitely going to meet him. And then that's the reality of it is that will never happen now, and I've lost a sort of like an hero of mine. And I wasn't drumming at that point at all, but he was one of my heroes. He was just a funny guy, and a great drummer. And yeah, it was a shock, Yeah. Was that 77, Paul? 78?
78 he died.
78, yeah. September the 7th, I believe. Yeah. Yeah, just a shock, of losing a great musician at 32, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah, 32.
Yeah. So there you go. One of my dreams, couldn't never do it, meet him,
It must have been on the news. And I can remember your dad in particular. I mean, I was obviously shocked and upset, but your dad was particularly shocked and upset because he just loved Keith. In fact, when I met him, he told me his name was Keith. And it might have actually been in The Kids Are All Right.
Mm.
Do you remember Keith talking to an American presenter on some show? My friends call me Keith.
Yeah, my friends call me Keith. You can call me John.
Yeah, well, yeah. John was similar to that.
Yeah,
I'm Keith, and then you can call me John or something. It's just, and that was before The Kids Are All Right came out. So I don't know whether Keith nicked it from John or John nicked it from Keith or what. But anyway, John used to tell everyone his name was Keith.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really loved Keith Moon, really did, and he was so upset when he died, as we both were. But yeah, he was in particular. So when he died, the Sun newspaper in the UK, more of a rag than a newspaper, had all these articles about Moon the Loon, drove his car into the swimming pool, slept with this woman, did this thing, did that thing, and not a word about what an amazing drummer he was, what a fantastic musician he was. Nothing about that at all. And I wrote into them to protest in the strongest terms, but they never did print my letter. I don't know why, but I wrote to them anyway. And I'm pleased I did so.
Yeah, good for you.
Yeah.
I was going to question why you were reading The Sun at that time, but then I used to read it for a short while, and I think it was in The Sun I found out about the Shepherd's Bush gig in '99. So.
Oh right, it might have been at my in-laws' house. I doubt if I probably didn't buy newspapers. Probably didn't have enough money to buy newspapers at the time, and probably read it at John's parents' house or something.
Yeah.
Because I think my mum. Oh, I don't know. Did my mum and dad get the Sun? I mean, my mum and dad, I mainly remember the Daily Mirror, but they might have even had the Sun for a while. I don't know. Yeah.
But no, good for you for writing to them and putting them straight.
Wasn't happy. Yeah.
But going on to a quick story, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure.
That when I went to see Townsend doing Lifehouse.
That in 2000.
I think it was in, yeah. And Townsend, he looked at the audience and he went, "My mate John's here," yeah. And I didn't think nothing of it. All right, he's got a mate John, yeah, great. So they took a break. They said the bar's open, yeah. So me and my ex who I was with, Jenny, we went to the bar. We was the first ones at the bar, and I was aware of someone next to me, also waiting to get a drink. And as I turned round, 2 foot away was John Entwistle, standing next to me, with no one else there at all. I went, "Oh," and that was it. Oh. I didn't say hello. I didn't say nothing to him. It was a shock of seeing him right next to me, and there weren't no phones to take pictures in or nothing. And I still regret that now. Not saying, "Hello, John, how are you? Oh, would you like a drink?" I was just in shock. I didn't say nothing, and that really bugs me now. Yeah, so that's I should have said something, and obviously John's passed now, so that's another. I'll never see him. You know, there you go. That's the way it goes, though, isn't it? Sometimes.
Have you thought of anything since then you could have said to him? Because I think, was it within seconds of spotting him, other people had come in and spotted him?
Yeah, by then, within let's say 2 minutes or a minute, other people started coming into the bar. Then he was recognised. Yeah, he never had no minders. He was with his girlfriend, and he was surrounded. Then there was no chance of me getting near him.
Yeah.
You know, but he was friendly. He was talking to everyone. You know, great. But I just went shell shock. And I didn't say nothing, and I really regret that now. You know.
Yeah.
So when we actually went to see Samantha Fish, the American guitarist, yeah, you went, look who's over there, Samantha Fish.
That's in the pub beforehand.
Yeah, well, this is recent, in the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was 2020 actually. So about
Was it really?
six
Wow,
years
that's
ago,
gone quick.
just before COVID, or as it was just kicking off. Sort of.
And I thought, right, I want to go up and say hello. I thought, I'm not going to let this happen again. You know, I went up to her. I said, hi, Sam, how are you? You know, we've got tickets to see you and all that, you know, blah-de-blah. I just had a quick chat with her. I thought, right, I'm not going to let this ever happen again. I'm not going to go up to him, you know, not bother him, just go up and say, oh, how are you? You know.
Yeah, yeah.
And, yeah.
And she was friendly, wasn't she?
She was very friendly, friendly, yeah. Yeah,
because you were just sat at a table with a couple of other guys, just waiting to get something to eat.
I did. I looked over and I did see a girl, and I thought, oh, she's a fan. She's trying to look like, so, you know, as you do, right? But it was you. Lucky you said it was her, because I wouldn't have took much notice, you know. So I just went and said hello and all that, and yeah, that was good. That was a great concert as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. But
just for those few seconds, just stood literally by yourself next to John Entwistle at a bar.
Yes, I know, it's mad, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was no one round him at all, just him and his girlfriend. It was just me and my girlfriend. I went, oh, it's John Entwistle. And that was it. And I went, I couldn't even think of nothing. Didn't even say hello. I just couldn't, you know, it's just one of them things where perhaps if I knew he was there, it would have been different. I had time to compose. And perhaps say, oh, John, how you doing? Oh, I'm a fan, and oh, whatever. You know, probably a load of old rubbish, you know. But at least I would have talked to him, perhaps shook his hand, you know.
That's the thing. I wouldn't even imagine him being there. Do you know what I mean? At a Pete Townsend solo show.
Yeah, he wasn't backstage having a glass of wine, looking from the, you know, like the side of the stage. You know, he was actually where we all sat watching. You know, and he went to the bar like a normal person. There was no minders with him or nothing. Considering he's one of the biggest rock stars in the world.
Yeah.
You know, today someone had about 22 minders walking up with him. You know, so yeah, it was just a night. It seemed nice. He was talking to people. He wasn't hiding. You know, he was normal. He didn't have to go to the bar. He could have had people bring him drinks.
Yeah.
Backstage. You know, but he chose to just be normal.
Yeah.
You know.
It's funny because I went to Sadler's Wells last year at the time of recording to see the Quadrophenia Ballet.
Yeah.
And it's the first time I'd ever been there. So I managed to picture, oh, that's where you would have stood when John Entwistle came up next to you.
Yeah.
Could picture it in my mind. And then later that night, I had Pete Townsend walk right past me and I didn't say anything.
No, you've done the same thing as I did. Yeah.
But I'm kind of glad I didn't. I think that's the difference.
Yeah.
I could feel myself holding my hand out and saying something, but I stopped myself.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of glad I did, because it feels like the universe was trying to tell me, nah, this ain't the time to talk to him.
No, you know, he's got a reputation of being a bit moody, isn't he, Pete? You know, he's...
Yeah, he looked like he wanted to get out of there quickly. This is the end of the night.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah.
I'm kind of glad, but...
Yeah, but I think you will meet him soon anyway, with all your great work you're doing on your podcast and all that.
Oh, hopefully. That's nice of you to say.
Yeah.
So out of all the gigs you've ever been to, not just the Who, but any gigs, where would you rank Charlton 76?
Oh, Christ. I'm going to say in the top 3, yeah? Because, definitely very high in the top 3, yeah.
I guess, seeing him with Keith Moon is just...
Oh, yeah, that's, you know, seeing your hero is unbelievable, you know, yeah.
Well, that's one thing I'm hoping will be quite interesting about this particular episode, is that people are going to remember things differently because it was 50 years ago, but it's interesting to get people's different perspectives and their different memories of things.
Yeah. Actually, just thinking about that 50 years thing, I was thinking as we said it before, and it doesn't seem that long ago that it was 50 years. If you think 50 years before that, 1926, so between where you would hear music in 1926 and Charlton 1976, it's massive, the change, isn't it? So maybe the change between now and 1976 isn't really that great compared to what was before.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually.
Yeah. Like 50 years, 1926 and 1976 seems a really big time, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But 1976 to now doesn't feel, maybe because I've lived through it, that doesn't feel like that great a time. Do you know what I mean? That big a time.
And I think a lot of people could make the case for music not actually having improved since 1976 either. I'm sure there's a lot of people who do think that.
A lot of good stuff happened in the 60s and 70s, definitely music wise. Yes, I think I wouldn't say there's not been good stuff since,
No.
but I think the 60s and 70s set it on its path. And yeah, I would say there's nothing probably that's better. There's things that maybe are equal. I don't know. It depends on your personal taste.
Hmm.
But bearing in mind the things were new then, yeah.
Yeah, it's really interesting
Good
to consider.
times. Yeah.
Out of all the gigs you've ever been to, and not just the Who, but any gig you've ever been to, where would you place Charlton 1976?
It probably is pretty high up because I haven't been to that many outside big things like that. So yeah, that's a real strong contender.
And you saw the Who with Keith Moon.
And I saw the Who with Keith Moon, which that's a great feeling of pride. And it's also something I've met so many people since Charlton, through my life at different times at work or whatever. And if the question of the Who's ever come up and you mention, oh, I saw them at Charlton, I've met so many people who say, oh yeah, I was there as well. And sort of seem to have met so many people who saw them at Charlton. And whether they were at the same one as me or the one before, I don't know. But yeah, it's amazing how many people were there. Well, like you said, 80,000.
That's it.
I feel like I've met about 10,000 of them.
And there we have it, Charlton 1976. And if you want to hear even more about that legendary concert, and the Who in general, from all of my guests in this episode, then there's going to be several bits of bonus content available to everyone coming within the next few weeks. Keep an eye out for an audio episode called Growing Up with the Who, featuring more of my mum and dad. And we'll also be releasing YouTube videos in which you can watch my full interviews on Charlton 76 with Tony Fletcher, Buddy Ascott and Richard Evans. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a few seconds to like and subscribe on YouTube or give us a 5-star rating on your podcast app, as this is a great way to support Talking About the Who and helps us reach more people. And if you're after exclusive bonus content, you can sign up for our membership for just £3 or $4 a month and have access to our ever-increasing library of extra episodes and live streams. Find out more at talkingaboutthewho.com or via the link in the show notes. Finally, a big thank you to all of my special guests this episode: Tony Fletcher, Buddy Ascott, Richard Evans, and my mum and dad. I'm definitely not jealous that you all saw The Who live with Keith Moon. Definitely not. And that's it for this episode, and indeed for Season 3 of Talking About the Who. I really hope you've enjoyed it, and I just want to say a massive thank you to everyone who's watched and listened, and everyone who's given me their positive feedback and encouragement. It's hugely appreciated. And if you're wondering about Season 4, it's coming very soon. Until then, thank you for watching, thank you for listening, look after yourselves, and as Roger Daltrey always says, be lucky. Goodbye.